Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Nick Parker. I'm a multimedia journalist, content creator, and documentary producer. I'm currently working as an associate producer for CBC News Network Social. So basically, I work on news content for social media platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. Let's get personal. When I received the invitation to talk with you all today, I admit I was surprised. I'm a young journalist with maybe 3 to 4 years of experience under my belt, and I wondered why anybody would want to hear me. And to be honest, part of me was also worried that I make a fool of myself. It took me a while to really face that fear, but when I did, it really reminded me of some of my first days in the newsroom. Being the youngest in the room is always difficult. We have all these quirky, fresh, and brilliant perspectives about how we see the world and our approach to storytelling, but they don't always blend in with what's going on now. You want to fit in, you want to be of value, but you also don't want to look naive. As I grew in my role as a journalist, it taught me to embrace that fear. I learned to be proud of the way I see things, and I learned how to speak up. It was one of the best things I ever did for my work, and it showed me that there's power in being a young person in the newsroom. My perspective as a young journalist, who's among the age demographic we're often targeting, is my edge. It's like the difference between talking with our audience and talking at them. And it's something we often discuss in the newsroom. But right now, young people don't feel represented in traditional media. They don't have the same connection to it that our parents once had. And it's pulling a lot of young people away. This in turn builds distrust and sometimes leads them to other potentially incredible social media sources. I bring this up right now because we are in the middle of a massive shift, and it's not a secret. But we need to find a way to address the ever-changing needs of our audience and to avoid stagnation. And we've got thousands of solutions stepping out of Canadian universities every year. As an industry, we have to ask ourselves if we're doing enough. And we have to remember that when we decide to innovate, it's beneficial to everybody. We have questions like, how do we create thoughtful interaction with our stories on new platforms like TikTok? How do we create interest in important but seemingly boring topics? How can we deliver information in new ways that is impactful and engaging? These are just some of the problems we face every day, and not to mention our deadlines. In a sense, we have to speak their language. Social media is one of the ways we can do that because it is no longer separate from our daily lives. These platforms have immense potential for reaching young people, but the framing and our approach to storytelling in these spaces has to be right. One way I've found success approaching news stories for social is to simply assume that my audience knows nothing about a given story and thus has no reason to care. It forces me to change my approach to my storytelling and to meet the viewer where they are. Here's an example of this. When Greg Fergus was voted in as Canada's new Speaker of the House, I assumed younger demographics may not really understand the role. So to relay the news and make it accessible, I broke down what the Speaker of the House does, the news of Fergus's appointment, and an interesting fact about the job. But I started it with an interesting question and visual, one that I think all of us have questioned before. Why is the Speaker physically being dragged into Parliament? That video garnered over 1.6 million views and over 132,000 likes. It really proved to me that traditional coverage may not be serving the needs of our modern viewers. But all it takes is a small perspective change and honestly saying things in a conversational way. And this is an issue I've noticed in a lot of important stories, especially political stories. And because of this, many young people find it daunting to keep up with politics. And I don't blame them. With good intentions, we sometimes as journalists create barriers for the reader, but that is a gap we need to bridge. In this industry, it's hard to find a moment to reflect on how we deliver our news, reflect on the needs of our audience, or the change in direction of the media landscape. But it's something we have to do. Not only is it important for our work, but it's important for our democracy. It makes it an exciting yet scary time to be a journalist. We have to work to reimagine the news environment for our generation while continuing to deliver credible and informative reporting like those who came before us. We have to face those fundamental problems that lie ahead because now we're not just journalists, storytellers, or writers. We're problem solvers and innovators, and we need to find a way to make news make sense for everybody. Thank you.